you're supposed to know things. You're supposed to be the smartest person in the room, even though you may not be. So I wanted to kind of unlearn that. And I was grumbling a lot. It's like, oh my gosh, like, these guys are taking advantage of me. I'm such a cheap labor for them, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, regularly working until like midnight, and because there was so much work. But in hindsight, that was the best like real life MBA I could ever have.
We are the music makers, and we are the dreamers of dreams. Come along, come on.
I'm Kevin Jervich. Welcome to Founder Uncovered, the show about those brave enough to dream big and bold enough to swim away from the safety of the shore. Here, we dive into the origin moments before the noise, before the spotlight, back when it was just a vision, a hunch, and a founder crazy enough to chase it. For all the dreamers listening, this is where your story begins. What's up, CK? Good to see you.
Yeah, great to see you. Great to see you.
I got a confession. I was thinking about this. It was like, every time we do these podcasts, I'm always like, what do I think about this founder? Like, that if I know them, and
yeah,
I was thinking about you, man. Truthfully, I don't know if I've told you this, maybe I have, but you're one of my favorite founders, not because I've like known you the longest or like any of these other things, but it's the way that when I first met you, I didn't know the success that you had. You were so humble, dude, like so humble. And it was the humbleness of like a first-time founder fresh out of college, and then the more that I learned about you, I'm like, man, we need more founders like that.
Thanks. Thanks for saying that. It means a lot.
It's true. But thanks for being on the show, man. I'm happy that you're here. And you're actually the first Hubble expert that I also get a chance to interview on the Founder Uncovered podcast. So that's a cool milestone for me.
Yeah. First of many to come, I guess.
How are you doing?
Great. The weather has been kind of crazy here in LA. But other than that, doing awesome. And my daughter has a spring break starting from next week, so we go to travel, for the next couple of weeks. So, nothing to complain about.
I don't know what it's like in LA, but anyone that's not in California, the last week has been crazy hot. I'm in Santa Cruz. Is it hot down in LA?
So where I am, so I'm by the beach, so it's not that bad. But I hear downtown LA, that's 95, and it's March.
Yeah, I'm in Santa Cruz.
Should be 65, not 95.
I'm in Santa Cruz on the beach, and it was 91 yesterday. So I'm not going outside.
Yeah. Meanwhile, New York is freezing. It's just the weather has been going crazy.
Yeah, man. Okay, let's dive into it. You're a successful founder. What was life like growing up? Did you always know you were going to be a founder? Did you want to be a doctor? What was young CK's ambitions?
So absolutely no tie to business or even tech at all. So my father, so typical Asian family, I guess. My father was a university professor, and he really stressed. So by the way, I was born and raised in Korea, and I came here for college, and I went back and came to California. So I've been living in California for the past 15 years. But growing up, I was in Korea, and my family really stressed academics. So my father was basically like, hey, if you have anything less than PhD, your life is a failure. And then, so I wanted to become a doctor without even knowing why. Growing up, I thought that I was always going to be some sort of a doctor, a medical doctor. But if somebody would ask me, hey, why do you want to become a doctor? I couldn't even answer. So I studied physics, biology, all of this, natural science. But back then, now I'm a naturalized U.S. citizen. Back then, I had a Korean passport, and I had to go back to Korea for army military duty because every Korean man has to serve in the military. Now it's 18 months, but back then it was 3 years. So kind of like an Israel, situation where every man has to serve. I think for Israel, it's men and women. But anyway, so I went back to Korea to serve in the military, but I learned that, like this was during the dot-com era, and the Korean government had like a special program. If you get a job at a certain tech company, that could serve as, count as serving in the military. And of course, it was very competitive. And I was like, like I had no idea about it before I went to Korea. And I was like, like that's, really interesting. I could learn and, even make money while serving for military. So long story short, I hustled my way into one of the startups, and I worked there for about 3.5 years. So this was certainly not my company. I was just doing my duty. But when I joined the company, it was like 30 people. When I left the company, it was like 300 people. So the company grew really fast. They went public in the Korean Stock Exchange. So the company was really, really successful. Now, when I joined the company, I was the only non-engineer. Everyone else was an engineer. And like a lot of this like non-engineer work, such as raising money, even like taking the company public, came find me. So I was like, this junior guy.
They hired you, the junior guy, and then you were basically taking this company to IPO.
So it's like, a lot of paperwork, right? And I was a cheap labor for them. And again, I was the only non-engineer. So like, they were like, hey, you go do this. And then I had to learn everything. And just imagine, as a physics biology major, like, what do you know anything about business plan, raising money, pitching your company? I had no idea. And this was like, early internet years. So we didn't have as much resources either. So probably Google search, that was the only thing I had. Like we didn't have ChatGPT or nothing. So I had to learn everything, and I was grumbling a lot. It's like, oh my gosh, like, these guys are taking advantage of me. I'm such a cheap labor for them, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, regularly working until like midnight, and because there was so much work. But in hindsight, that was the best like real life MBA I could ever have. So I'm really grateful for that opportunity now looking back. But anyway, that was my foray into startup, even though it wasn't my startup. I learned so much there. Yeah. So that's how I got into tech.
That's an awesome story. I'm glad, maybe I don't know what ended up happening to the company, but it's rare to join a company that small for your first startup and actually see success. Because most startups that small, they don't turn out to be 300 people companies filing for IPOs. What was the result like at the end? Did that company, are they still around? Did they IPO? Was it successful?
The IPO was successful, and the company is not around. And part of the reason is because the IPO, what happened to a lot of companies in the dot-com boom. So part of the reason why the company didn't go well after IPO was because IPO was so successful. So they, their stock price was crazy, and they raised a shit ton of money. And then all kinds of like random people show up. It's like, oh yeah, can you invest in this? Can we do like joint venture in this? So the company eventually, this was kind of like after my time, but the company eventually got into like, all these different things. So I guess the lesson there, and I think a lot of founders took the lesson, because if you think about like the dot-com craziness, that was the first time the industry ever experienced something like that. So a lot of people, made the rookie mistake, and the money was around, and you didn't have the discipline. So I think a lot of founders took their lesson, but this company was not exception. I mean, they were like I guess like a result of their own success.
Yeah, I think we hear this often as founders, like, hey, don't raise too much money, right? We don't, too much money too quickly, too soon, you're going to run into problems. And I think we hear this, but then most founders kind of brush it off like, oh, I don't really care. I want to raise a ton of money. One thing that actually the person that introduced us, his name is David Yee, and they led our pre-seed round. And he's given me like so many like pearls of wisdom over the year that I've known him. But like one thing that has stuck with me that like I continue to operate under is, we raise our seed round, it's $4 million, and we're putting half of this away in a bank account, and we're operating on 2 million, so that we can kind of keep this like not scarcity mindset, because you still want to be on offense and you still want to be pushing the boundaries, but operating under limited resources allows you to be a little more scrappy, think outside the box. Do you really need that standing desk? Like all these like little things that can add up. I think that's so important, that idea of like, sometimes it's better to do, sometimes you could do more with less early on, and take smaller, more calculated bets.
Yeah, so that's a great tip. Not only like the philosophy of, hey, out of like X, let's take this much and then pretend that we only have this, but also practical tip there, right? Like, the thing is like you can create as many different bank accounts you can, and you don't have to put everything in one account. And just by seeing the numbers, like human psychology works, like, oh, like we have this much in the bank, versus if you don't see, that money, it's different. Yeah.
I know every time I see money in my bank account, I think about, oh, is it time to upgrade my car? Oh, did I get a bigger TV? All these little silly things, but it's true. That's a good point. So after that company, you're cheap labor, you're working hard, you're staying up late. Did you end up quitting, or did eventually you say, yeah, what happened?
Yeah, so I did my time there. So military duty done. And turned out I didn't graduate from college. So like I went back to Korea. I went to Michigan for college, and I had like a semester to go. So I came back to the States and finished up the semester and graduated. And I thought that I was going to go to like MBA or something, some sort of graduate school. I even applied and got accepted to some schools as well. But Samsung, the big company, came recruiting. They did like a campus recruiting, and I went there, and just like one thing led to another, and got accepted. And I was like debating, oh, should I go to MBA or like should I go join this company? And one is like spending money, the other is making money. So obviously, I chose the path of making money. And that was my journey of my Samsung journey. I ended up working at the company for about 4 years. But even when I was working at Samsung, obviously a big company, I still had that like bug because I had the startup experience. So I got to experience that, and I got plugged into the startup ecosystem. So I was putting together like meetups or conferences. I was like trying to stay close to the startup community, even though I was working at this big company. And I was probably the only person at Samsung who ever kept in touch with the startup community. But I met this guy who already had been a serial entrepreneur at that point, and he was starting his own company. And now this was during Web 2.0 era. So like I started my tech career in, I guess, like .com. But now this was like Web 2.0 was a big thing. And this was like content creation, UGC, social, these things. And this guy was starting a company, and I was, we were grabbing dinner together all the time, and we were like literally like drawing some stuff on the back of the napkin and kind of thinking about the next company together. So I joined him as a co-founder of my first company. I was a co-founder, co-CEO of that first company.
How was being a co-CEO? I know like my first company that I started, I was a co-CEO, and I think in hindsight, like thinking back on it, I haven't actually thought about this until you literally just said this. I think we called each other co-CEOs because it was uncomfortable for one of us to be like, I need to make the final say. Did you run into that? Because my philosophy now is there needs to be one decision maker. It doesn't mean that person is a dictator and makes all the decisions. Like any smart leader, you need to lean into your co-founder and your team for some of those decision makings. But did you guys run into issues with like making the final call on something, or if an investor said, well, who do I talk to? Was there any of those issues?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we didn't have that issue because it was clear he was the main guy. Like I defer to him for like corporate decisions, things like that. But I had my own, areas as well. So he and I, like his name is Chester. So Chester and I still are good friends to each other, and I have great respect for him. And then I think the co-CEOs, it can work when you have like a clear areas of ownership. And hey, for this, you got this. And for this area, I got this. So like a very clear division of decision making and ownership. But at the end, you're absolutely right. I mean, there has to be one person who make the final decision. Otherwise, you have a logjam situation. And for those, I think there should be one person.
Yeah. I think even with like co-founders, even if you have a different title, like a CTO, right? Obviously, like, yeah, that person's going to deal with more of the tech and the code.
Yeah.
But you got to trust. I think at the foundation level, it's like if you trust your co-founder and the roles are explicitly laid out, you need to trust that they can handle them. But I think sometimes what can happen is like if marketing's kind of lagging, the other person, the CTO, can look over their shoulder and be like, "Hey, what's going on over here?"
Yeah.
And it's okay, but you got to trust that person has it under control. Yeah, and not try to step on too many toes, because I know sometimes I can do that.
Right. Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean. So yeah, it's a delicate balance, right? Like trusting, and also like if you just trust and then not say anything, that could be seen as like you don't care, and you don't want that either. So like I think a good balance would be kind of like presenting your ideas first. So you kind of like put it, invest the time thinking about that problem. It's like, hey, in my opinion, like I feel like we should do X, Y, Z. But then you're presenting it as an option. But then, hey, as always, I'm completely trusting you. You can just consider this. But then if you don't like it, you can just like throw this in the trash can right away. Like, I don't care. But like if I were you, I would do X, Y, Z. I think that's a good approach where you proactively suggest the idea so that you care, but then you also trust the other person.
What ended up happening to that company that you and Chester co-founded?
So we got lucky. We got acquired by Google in relatively early years of the company. So we got acquired in year 3 of the company. So what happened was, so this was, by the way, back in Korea. So we were the leading blogging software company in Korea because we thought that, hey, Web 2.0, UGC, one of the most important tools for UGC is blogging tools. So we actually bought a small software. This was like an open source software that was kind of trending. And we bought that software. And then that person also joined the company as well. But we commercialized the open source software. So we had an open source community as well. But we were also developing sort of like a hosted.com version, very similar to WordPress, actually. We didn't really reference WordPress that much, but like we ended up being very similar to that company. We ran this company, and then we had users. We became like number one service in Korea. A lot of bloggers and creating content. What happened was Google launched in Korea, and Korea is a very interesting market. Google has majority of internet search market shares everywhere in the world. Like if you go to any country, like Google is number one. There are 3 countries Google is not number one. That's Russia, China, and South Korea for some reason. Because South Korea, we had a very strong incumbent, Naver. And what Naver did was they kind of blocked off indexing by search engine, any other search engines, because Naver also had a search engine. So they kind of blocked out everyone from indexing their content. The other thing that they also did was producing a lot of internal content. So like they hired a lot of bloggers and created like a bunch of like blog content and then kept it kind of like walled garden. So Google didn't like that. So Google was like, okay, so like if these guys are playing, like unfairly, what should we do? And they thought about like kind of like, hey, let's create our own content as well and then index that content. So that's why they bought us. It was a good deal. The company, we had really good engineers and they ended up joining Google. Some of them are still working at the company. So it was good outcome.
Talking about that outcome and like maybe one step before that, like how does one get acquired by Google? I think about like acquisitions and like Google, Apple, like these companies are kind of a dream. You don't usually start a company to like thinking about like, oh, I can't wait to sell it. But at some point, when you think about getting acquired, that's like a dream scenario, right? Because the resources, the reach, the distribution, the brand, the logo. How does one get acquired by Google? Did they like send you an email out of the blue? Did they reach out? Did they call you? How did that work?
Yeah, so they reached out to us. The deal took north of a year actually. So it wasn't like, I mean, sometimes Google just goes and then buys a company in like 2 months or 2 weeks. But for us, it took like a year. So the mechanics of it is, sometimes taking pretty long. And part of the reason, I guess, was this was we were a Korean company, and the Google Korea people had to always kind of communicate with their HQ. But yeah, we got reached out by corp dev person in at Google.
Did, did
So
you
I
did you think it was spam, or did you actually think like, oh, this is actually coming from Google?
So I think it was initially, it could have been email, but then like we eventually ended the meeting in person. And then we became, yeah, acquainted, and then we were like talking in person a lot. So yeah, like people say companies are only bought, not sold, right? So it's like you got, like you can't try to like sell yourself. At that point, you might look desperate, but you gotta be reached, out by the acquirer, and then that's typically when the deal happens. But in the meantime, you gotta be out there. You gotta be known. Like if you're not known, even if the corp dev person or potential buyer, they try to like buy other companies, you're invisible. So you have to be always out there. You have to kind of sell yourself all the time. So you gotta be known. But that doesn't mean that you're trying to sell your company. Yeah.
Yeah. So once they reached out, you guys met in person, a year of DD back and forth. Do you remember just going back to that moment? Number one, I don't know if you can disclose this, but what did you guys get bought? How much did they pay for the company? People love numbers. That's always interesting. And then number two, once the deal closed, do you remember that moment or that day that happened?
Yeah. No, I can answer the second part. The first part, Google said no disclosure. Happy to talk about my, the numbers for my second company, because the second company acquirer didn't have that, clause. The deal, and like I was texting with Chester, I remember very clearly that everything done, and that the next morning, we were just like texting each other, and then yeah, like so happy that the deal was over. First of all, because the deal took a long time. Secondly, yeah, we knew that this was going to go out, and then this was the first company that Google bought in Korea, and then we could get that publicity, and then we're joining this company where we learned a lot, where we could learn a lot. So yeah, everything working together. Like we were just like chatting, like, hey, like this is so great. I remember that morning. Yeah, we were like just chatting, like texting each other. And from there, it was just like we got sucked into the gravity, center of gravity, really quickly, because the deal closed on Friday. I remember, like like literally it was like Friday, and then the next morning, next Monday morning, we started at Google. So physically, in the office, we were like at the Google Seoul office on Monday morning. So yeah, it was like very continuous process, which I think was helpful, because if you have like 2 months in between, it's kind of awkward. And then, hey, what do you do? But because it was very much a continuation, I think it was helpful.
I think this kind of underscores you also as a person. Like this whole timeline you've kind of gone through, you haven't taken any breaks. It's like you were in college, university, you came back, you finished, you got a job at this .com company. Then you worked at this Samsung for a couple of years. Then you started this company with this guy. Then literally you sell your company on Friday. In 2 days, we get a weekend and we're back to work on Monday. I did read somewhere that you did take a sabbatical. So I know that you do rest. Was this sabbatical? So I know you sold you mentioned you sold a second company. And I think there's a big number floating around the internet with this second company potentially. Was that before the sabbatical?
No. So what happened was, like this things happening back to back. That was like a pattern that continued until my second company. So like after Google, I started my second company almost right away. So what happened was I worked at Google for about 4 years as well, and my stocks got vested, and this like, and I came to California, and I was working at the Google headquarters, and I got my green card, and like I was pretty ready to move on. And what happened was, before I left Google, and I was like, obviously working hard at Google during the day, but during the night, I was like kind of like cooking up the ideas for the second company, and I was pretty ready. So, but when I started the second company, I had a pretty good idea of what I wanted to build, because there was like a lead time, like I think like 7 months. I was kind of cooking up the idea on the side. And then, this second company was a long journey. I mean, it took us like 9 years until we got acquired. So, sometimes I see like founders go like, "Oh, I'm so like tired. I'm burnt out. I'm in my year 3." I'm like, dude, like year 3, like you're just starting. Like, what are you talking about? But year 9 got acquired, stayed with the company for a couple more years. So I ended up working at the company for like 10 plus years. And then finally left. And then that's when I realized like, oh, dude, like, man, this is like, I never took like more than 2 weeks until then. Like the most time I took off was my honeymoon. So I was like, I'm going to take at least a year off. And I ended up taking a year and a half off. Yeah.
That's incredible. You mentioned you got acquired. How much did you guys get acquired for?
We got acquired for 510 million.
Yeah, I knew that number, but you were underselling it again. See, this is your humility. So you get acquired for $510 million. Yeah. What was that moment like? When that money either hit the bank account or when that deal was completely closed? What was that moment like?
Yeah. So a couple things there. One is, obviously it was great, right? It was not only great for us, the team, everyone involved. We had, after the deal, so we had about like 70 people at the company. About 15% of them became millionaires. Wow. So like we produced like eight or 9 millionaires. And that was really happy. I was really happy about that. And it was good financial outcome for myself. It was good financial outcome for all the investors. Like investors, the last round that we had raised, we were really capital lean. So the last financing that we did before selling the company was Series B, and we raised something like $7.5 million. So that was the last institutional round. They had a 30x return. Wow. So Series A, seed, like they had like probably like a 50x, 100x return. I didn't calculate, but I do know like a Series B was 30x.
If the Series B was 30x, the Series A and the seed were extremely happy for sure.
Yes. And this was a different time. So Series B, these days it would be like $100 million round, but back then it was like 7.5. So it was, I think it was like closer to like Series A, back then.
What's cool? I'm picking this up in your body language as you're talking about this. And maybe some founders may not know this, and maybe they do. When investors take a bet on you and they back you, there's something inside of you. It's the same thing with early employees. It's like more than anything, I want to prove these people right. Like more than anything, like these early employees that taking a bet, they're getting paid less. These early investors that are investing when there's like semi-product market fit, but there's a lot of uncertainty. Like that is part of my core motivation every day. Of course, the vision of the product and the impact that it has is like another core motivation, but being able to pay those investors back one day, that 10 plus X return, or being able to, like you said, make 8 or 10 millionaires for these early employees that sacrificed. There's no better feeling for that.
Absolutely. Yes, these people trusted in you, believed in you. So you want to definitely return the favor. The other thing, it of course goes the other way as well. Like people who didn't invest, and you have like, it's like, all right, that's fine. It's business, but you want to prove them wrong, right? It's like, hey, F you.
The silent assassin. I love it. Yeah, I have a little list in the back of my mind filed away from early rejections for sure. They don't motivate me as much, but I haven't had a 500 million plus exit yet. And so maybe one day if I do, I'll recall those. Okay, so after this, I don't even know how many years that was. That was probably like 20 straight years of work that you did,
Yeah.
including college. You finally decide to take some time off.
Yeah.
What was
That
that
was
like?
great. Yeah, that was really great. When I left this company, my second company, it was a long journey. And I, like I started researching about like before doing sabbatical, like, before you do anything, you do research first, right? So like I actually had a pretty systematic approach to this. So I was like, hey, if I want to do this, I want to do this right. And I was interviewing some people and I was like researching some articles. There was this really fascinating article written by Lenny, I forgot his last name, but he's like a very famous podcaster now.
Richitsky?
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
And he had a newsletter article about sabbatical, and I read it, and that was really helpful. He said, 1 year seems to be the minimum time, but if you can't take 1 year, it's fine. You can, still take some time off. And then, he has some other stuff. So I was like, hey, like, I want to take at least a year off. And what I wanted to do was, first of all, intentionally try to not to like schedule or plan for this. Because that's what some people like. One of the first mistakes some people make because they're such a founder. They bring founder mentality to everything, including sabbatical. So I wanted to kind of unlearn that. And hey, like I'm not doing work here, so let's not plan things and then see what happens. But that was my approach.
Removing deadlines is like, and calendar invites and calls is like way easier said than done. So as you remove them, at what point in your sabbatical were you like, I got to get back to work? And then maybe also like during the sabbatical, what did you learn about yourself? Like, was there any revelation or realization or clarity into what CK was about to do next?
Yeah, first of all, sabbatical was really, really helpful. And I think sometimes you realize how good something is when other people tell you. So my wife, for example, she's always telling me she could see the change before and after sabbatical. Like she's telling me, hey, you're a completely different person. And if as you are the person going through, you may not realize, but obviously my wife is the closest to me. And if she says I'm a different person, I think that's really credible. What happened was, during the sabbatical, I tried to figure out what I wanted to do next. I was like, okay, so not only like I can maybe try some different things. So I ended up like investing in a lot of companies and funds. I invested in like 55 companies, as an angel investor, and I was trying to help other founders. So that's one thing I did. So my schedule was not like empty. I wasn't working, but like I had like Zoom calls, sometimes even like back to back. But these were like, energy giving. Like I could take energy from these meetings. So one thing I realized was it's not really about how many meetings you are having or how many people you meet. It's really about, hey, am I spending energy or am I gaining energy? And when you meet inspiring people, like you get energy, right? So that was a really good thing. But more than anything, I try to just like talk to people, like being in LA. So I used to be in the Bay Area for 10 years and I moved here in 2020. And one of the things, very different about LA is tech is just like a small part of the industry, small part of the world. You have so many different kinds of people, so many different people doing different things. So I intentionally try to get out of my tech bubble. And then I made a rule of like, hey, like I want to talk to as many people as possible in different parts of the industry or like walks of life. And, those meetings were just like nothing fancy. Like I sometimes reach out and then try to grab coffee with them. And I typically say like, hey, how's life? How's your life going? And people go crazy. Like, it's just such a simple question, right? It's like, how's life? But people would like speak for 20 minutes, 30 minutes.
Like, are you happy? Like, ooh, yeah.
Yeah, something like that, right? Something like that. So like that was my realization. Like people want to be heard and people have amazing stories. And just by, asking that thought-provoking question and listening, you can learn so much. So that was my, I guess, like biggest takeaway from or the benefit from the sabbatical, just being able to talk to so many different people.
How about the one of the probably most important people in your entire life of all time, your wife? Like when they say something like that, that means something. That means a lot. She spends the
Yes,
most time with you more than anybody.
yes, yeah.
And when the people around us that are the closest, they see our stresses, even though they may not say it, or they see our personality quirks or changes. And being a founder or working for that amount of time is great. It's stressful. It's hard.
Yeah, I was always on the edge. I was always stressed out, and I had like a sleep trouble. Honestly, like I think a lot of founders have sleep trouble. Like I couldn't easily sleep. Like when I was running the company, even when the company was doing okay, I was always kind of stressed out, and I was on the edge. But sabbatical, and I like when I was running the company, it's like you're the founder. Everybody wants to hear from you. You're supposed to know things. You're supposed to be the smartest person in the room, even though you may not be. So like I always had to be like carrying things around. But sabbatical experience was completely opposite. I was mostly listening to other people. I was trying to learn from other people, and I realized, oh shit, there's so many things that I can learn from other people. So humility, like being able to listen, being able to read other people. My wife is telling me as well, like in terms of like my social skills, being able to read other people, I became much better after sabbatical.
Because you just took meeting after meeting and you were listening and doing some level of due diligence when you're doing all these investments. And you mentioned something about calls today. And I've probably for the last 5 months, I'll just share something personal. Like I've been doing so many calls, right? And I think part of the job as an early stage founder is like, you got to be the chief everything officer. You got to sell, you got to onboard new customers, you got to grow your team, you got to organize sprint planning and design meetings. And pretty soon, like your calendar starts to dominate you, I like to say, which just basically means I wake up, I look at my calendar, I'm like, what the heck do I got to do today? Okay, boom. And then I'm basically in the matrix from like 6 a.m. to 3:30. And then I finally get a little bit of time at the end of the day. And I told my team today, this morning, right before this call, actually, I needed to have a mind shift because I started looking at these calls as like to-do lists where it was like, okay, next one's done. Okay, next one's done, right? Instead of looking at each of these as opportunities, right? An opportunity to learn or to grow or to get better or to connect with my team or to connect with a potential investor or partner. And I like this idea of focusing on the things in the calls that give you energy. And even sometimes the ones that don't, if we mentally, like I'm going to put a little sticky note on my computer with one sentence that motivates me and reminds me of these calls, that these are opportunities, not tasks. Well, I like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I love it.
So after we take some time off, we're energized, we're feeling good, the wife loves us at an all-time high. Does that lead us into the current company and the idea for this?
Pretty much. So one thing was I didn't want to put a deadline. I think you mentioned that earlier, but I wanted to kind of wait until inspiration hits me. And the analogy that I sometimes use is it's like getting married. Like no one goes like, oh, like I want to get married by March of next year. I mean, that's like, kind of wrong. And what you do is you first kind of wait until the right person shows up, and maybe marriage could be an option, right? So I wanted to kind of, in terms of like finding my next steps, I wanted to kind of not put a deadline to this and kind of wait until the inspiration hits me. So that's the approach that I took, which I also recommend to other people as well. So the inspiration for me was, and this was really interesting. So like somebody told me, okay, so I was chatting with that person, and I was like, oh, like I'm trying to figure out, what I want to do next in my life, and it was like, yeah, like do this exercise just like once. Can you just like really really try to visualize this? And what he said was, just try to visualize. It's a little morbid, but just imagine you walk into a doctor's office and then the doctor says, God forbid, but like, hey, you have like 3 years to live. And if that moment hits, what do you want to do? And if you have certain ideas, that you should do that right now. You don't have to wait until the end. So I was like, that's really interesting. So I try to kind of like imagine that as much as possible. And I had like a million ideas. Like one of the random ideas that I had was, this is nothing to do with my current business, but one of the random idea I had was, so if I had like 3 years to live, I wanted to meet everyone that I have met, in my life, kind of interacted with. And then like I try to, meet them, shake hands, and hey, like this is one thing I learned from you. This is one thing I like about you. And then like just keep going, right? And then move on to the next person. But one of the ideas was I wanted to share more about my learnings. And hey, before I go, like if I have like knowledge up here and then go, what a waste. So I wanted to write more. So that that's easy part. Like writing is easy, and I started writing more. I know Kevin, you're awesome writer, especially on LinkedIn and stuff. And I try to do that as well. So I started writing more on LinkedIn, and people said, that's really great. Thanks for sharing this. So I wanted to do a business around it. So like, hey, not only because that was my background as well, because I built a blogging tool before. Second company I did was a mobile sort of a publishing storytelling platform. So that was another kind of content creation platform. So I love building platforms for other people to express themselves and share their thoughts. So I wanted to kind of do that, but this time using AI, because AI came out, and I was really amazed by the capability of AI. So it's like, hey, let's combine the power of AI and allowing other people to express themselves and kind of share their insights. So that was the beginning of this company.
And for those that don't know, so CK is the co-founder, CEO of Saywise. How would you describe like what Saywise is? And then also like in the same sense, like what are you guys excited? I know you guys launched. What are you excited about for the rest of 2026 and the vision of the company?
Good question. So what Saywise is it's using AI to extract the human knowledge and wisdom better. So it essentially what it does is we're creating AI personas that becomes like a conversation partner with humans. So we know AI has great capability to create content, and now there's so much like AI created content, and it's going to flood the internet. What we want to do is to kind of like take it upside down, and then hey, what if like humans continue creating their authentic content, but AI is helping them? So AI being a conversation partner, sometimes it can ask you really thoughtful questions, but then mostly it's listening, and it's the humans who speak their mind and kind of share, their knowledge, wisdom, insights through just talking, to AI. So that's essentially what we wanted to build. So yeah, it's like on Saywise, we suggest topics, write talking points to you, and then once you're ready, the AI has conversation with you. It can happen over browser, it can happen over video voice. Or we also like call you if you want, and you can also call, so phone call, Saywise directly as well. So just like, have casual conversation with AI, and then AI is going to do a really good job kind of putting that into, written posts. It can also create videos based on your voice. So that's what we do. In terms of 2026, the big thing that we want to focus on is kind of building the use case for teams. So as we talk to a lot of users, one of the common things that people said was, oh, like this can be used for me as a founder, but also my team can use this as well. So it turns out, every company has every company pretty much has their own social accounts, like at, something. And sometimes it's collaboration effort. Hey, let's make sure our company account doesn't look like it's a ghost town. So let's continue like publishing regularly. But then, no one, like sometimes people don't really have direct ownership. So sometimes it's like, hey, like the company account is, has not published anything for the past 3 months. So we're trying to figure out the use case for companies to use Saywise to involve their team members and create better content that can represent the company. One of the things that we're, as part of that, one of the things that we're doing is also integrating with a bunch of different sources within the company. So turns out like within the company, there's so many things happening already. We have meetings, we have, like brainstormings, we have, this and that. So we're integrating with meeting notes. We're integrating with, different people's, I guess, like profiles, even Notion, things like that, Slack. And we extract the, really interesting topics that can be turned into content. And then we surface that to the people on the team. Hey, would you like to turn this into content and kind of use this as an opportunity to create content for your company? So that's something that we're doing. Yes,
I definitely want to try this for Hubble.
Yeah.
After this call, I'm going to put you on an email thread with Taylor. Taylor, shout out Taylor if you're listening. She does all of our writing on our company page, but we're always looking for like just better, sharper, punchier, overall more impactful content that more people can see. Because at the end of the day, like platforms like LinkedIn are massive distribution channels and company pages. And I think in the past, a lot of companies, the voice is so stale of the company. Like the best companies, if we follow them on social media now, it's like they're funny, they're witty, there's humor, like. And so, yeah, I'm seeing that sort of shift, and it's something that we talk about all the time. Like, how can we have a louder voice, a more impactful voice, a bigger voice? So I'm definitely going to do that for sure.
Definitely love to pilot. And just really quickly, so you mentioned the LinkedIn and other places being the best, I guess, like a medium for companies. Yeah, it's really remarkable. Like content creation in a way has become like it's not an option anymore. If you're not doing that, you're kind of falling behind. And I know that there are some founders or marketers who are naturally good at it. It's just like comes out like really naturally. So you're like gifted. But turns out there's a lot of people like founders, marketers who want to do it more, but they don't know how to do it. They don't have time. So that's when we can be helpful. Where hey. Yeah, we're kind of suggesting, hey, would you like to talk about these 5 things? And then if you're ready, you just have a really casual conversation, and the rest of it will be taken care of. So yeah, I definitely agree. LinkedIn being a really important channel.
We'll definitely link your website in the show notes. And so anybody that's interested in that and wants to check out Saywise, I think one thing that I've learned about UCK is I wouldn't bet against you. People say the same thing about Elon. Don't bet against Elon, whether somebody likes him or not. It's like there's a humbleness about you. Your personalities are much different. But a lot of the things that you've worked on have been successful. I think that's like a common theme. Even as we went through this timeline today with your life, like for somebody early on that's trying to build something, what signals should they trust and maybe lean into? And what in your past have you just completely ignored and trusted your instincts on?
That's a good question. Sometimes, so like, again, during my sabbatical, I met a lot of founders and sometimes investing. And that's when I realized this is really interesting. Like, I was trying to figure out what would make investors kind of like go like, hey, I want to drop everything and I want to write check for this person. And versus somebody can be really like, eloquent and smooth, but then you're like, oh, I'm not really sure. Right. So I met these people. So sometimes I meet some people. I mean, of course, that doesn't mean that, every one of them will turn out to be successful. But we're talking about that first moment where you're like, oh my gosh, this guy's crazy. This girl's crazy. What makes them like that? And my conclusion was, like an obsession into like one thing. Like, have you like met like, these people who are like crazy about one area, and then when it comes to that particular thing, they go crazy, and then they're like completely different person. They might be like weak in other areas in life, including social skills. I mean, they might be extremely weak, like weird people. But it's like when it comes to this thing, this girl is crazy, and right? And they think about it all the time. And that's when they form a really unique perspective. And then they're like, oh my gosh, I'm surprised that we're not doing X, Y, Z. Like, I'm going to make this happen. So, and they're like thinking, so they're like crazy obsessed about that one thing. So when it comes to that thing, they have this certain authority, a certain aura, I think it's really that. Like, does that person have this one thing that they're crazy about? Yeah.
I love that answer.
Yeah, that versus like entrepreneurs, like sometimes you see people who are like, hey, I want to do a startup. I don't know like what I want to do, but then like seems like startup is a really good way to make money eventually, and it's kind of fashionable. So I want to do startups. I don't know what I want to do, but like I want to do startups. Sure, I mean you could succeed that way. I mean you can eventually figure it out, but I have seen more people who want to do startups kind of like started that way, kind of fail early because like a lot of times these are smart people, like high quality people, and they like when they hit the first wall, because I mean startup is like walls after walls and just like a really really challenging, and when they first hit the challenge, that's when, because they have a very weak base. They don't have this one thing they're crazy about. It was just like a startup that they wanted to do. So I saw a lot of people like kind of crumbling at the first challenge because they don't have a very deep basis. Yeah.
You have to have that, like you're talking about. Basically, we've all seen quotes about being a founder, but I'll just be honest, most days are going to be challenging and they're going to suck early on. That's just the reality of it. And if there's not that obsession and that passion and that undying, just when I wake up out in the morning, that why of why I'm starting this company just pulls me out of bed. If that's not there, it's going to be really hard to make it like you did 9 years before getting acquired, right? Like there's a lot of rain and not a lot of sunshine early on, and you got to be able to withstand that. When you think back on your life, and I look at you, just between you and I love the Golden State Warriors. They're my favorite basketball team. Shout out Steph Curry. They're not doing so good right now, but during their heyday, when we had a bunch of championships, I feel like you're right at halftime, right? It's like, and the Warriors, they can have an unbelievable halftime, or they can even be down at halftime. It doesn't even matter. And they could just go crazy in the third quarter and they win by 30. This happens all the time. I feel like you're right in the middle. Like you've had a great run, this first half of your career, but you're just kind of hitting your stride. When you think back on it and the success that you've had, if you had to attribute it to like one attribute or one core thing, what would that be?
I guess mission driven, not quitting easily. I mean, especially for my second company, there were enough moments when I wanted to just like, hey, fuck it, I'm out of here. But I kept going. So you could call it energy, you could call it longevity, but I think like I thought about that actually. So why did I keep going? Is it the desire to avoid failure, or like where did it come from? And I think it goes back to like sometimes it's like a very simple question: what would I do if I'm not doing this? And I was thinking, okay, so like all my life I've been building content creation platforms, so probably I'll be doing another content creation platform. And and we were in the mobile space, and mobile was a big thing. So I had no doubt that like mobile, applications will become more important. So I'll probably do something about mobile. So it's like, oh, dude, I mean that's the same thing that you're doing right now. So. Like part of that is a calculated move. It's like, hey, if I'm not doing this, like realistically speaking, what would I do? Like, do I have alternatives? And if not, then you just keep going.
Yeah. Is your dad still with us?
Yes.
Well, I know he wanted you to be a PhD and a doctor, but I guarantee you, even if he hasn't said it, because sometimes parents can be stubborn, I know he's proud of you. What a journey you've been on, man. And I'm excited to see the second half of this, because it is halftime for you unfold and support your companies and your mission. And yeah, thanks a lot, man. It was great talking with you.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Founder Uncovered. If you found this conversation helpful, please follow the show notes so you don't miss out on next episodes. We also have a newsletter where we profile early stage founders, sharing tactical advice you can use right now. You can find the link in the show notes. One conversation can change everything. I'll see you next time. Perkins Coie is a leading international law firm known for providing high-value strategic solutions. The emerging companies and venture capital team counsels startups and the investors who back them, supporting clients from formation to exit. In the past 3 years, clients have raised more than $23 billion, with a B, in private markets between pre-seed and growth stages. Perkins Coie combines tailored counsel with sector experience. So when it's time to accelerate, whether for the next financing round, a strategic deal, or even going public, your team is ready. To learn more, visit perkinscoie.com.